I want to give all praise and glory to Yahweh Bahasham, Yahweh Shai Bahasham Ha Rakat Kwadash. Double honors unto our apostle elders which rule Great Millstone Well and Shalom to the hopeful elect of the nation of Israel, Wa Abba Babal. I declare the Copyright Act, Section 107, which allows me to use copyright materials for edifying my people, the Israelites, on the biblical accuracy of the times that we're living in. Alright, which were to be circumspect and examining the times within themselves according to biblical prophecy. Which this video shows you biblical prophecy taking place. Alright?
All right, let's start off with this one because it is just too funny to. I didn't believe this when I first saw this. I had to actually fact check this. 71 children from an Orthodox Jewish school were rescued from underground tunnels connected to a sewer system in New York. What is happening? Watch this.
Mayor, can you give us a word? What's happening?
Some young girls, some kids, they in the park. They were in the park. They got into the culvert of the creek, and they started exploring. And then they ended up not really knowing where they were, and they got a little alarmed. As far as I know from the police, I just got here a few minutes ago. As far as I know from the police, everybody's been accounted for. Nobody's missing. They're about to get them all on their buses, take them back home.
Mayor Joe Rand, Nyack, thank you very much.
Okay. Like, excuse me, what? Hold on a second here. There's a lot of nothing going on here, and then let's fast forward. And then the kids are going to come out. You're going to see the kids here in a second. Here, let me fast forward. Here they are. All these girls. 71 Orthodox Jewish girls. I mean, what in the world is going on here? Oh, they just, the story is, they just got lost. They were just in a park, and they were in a park, and they were exploring, and then somehow they found themselves underground in New York sewage tunnels. And this comes on the heels of, we've seen the videos and the images of, the random Orthodox Jew coming out of the tunnel. and then there's that whole, entire compound that was discovered at one point. And then last week, then there's this. Now, they don't say it was Jewish people coming out of that they had discovered about a dozen people coming in and out of manholes. But, the likely suspects at this point. Watch this.
Good evening. These are two separate incidents, very similar in nature, that happened around the same time, but police say it's not clear if they're related. A large response in Williamsburg. The NYPD K-9 unit, FDNY, and Department of Environmental Protection investigate a sewer at Bedford Avenue and Hayward Street after cameras spotted about 8 men entering the manhole around 1 o'clock Friday morning and reappearing around 3:40 a.m. Neighbors just as curious to find out what was happening. Around 11 o'clock Thursday night, the same thing happened in Gravesend, 8 miles away.
They show the people climbing in, climbing out, changing their clothes.
About 7 men climbed into the manhole on McDonald Avenue in Collin Place. They spent 3 hours in the sewer and emerged at 2 a.m.
They get out, they get in a car, they drive away.
Neighbors were alerted when investigators showed up Friday to canvass the area. They were told not to worry.
They climbed in the manholes, they searched, they went up and down the block, and lo and behold, they tell us they dropped their keys. I don't believe anyone dropped keys.
A DEP spokesperson says the sewers have been inspected and the infrastructure is safe. They warn it's not only illegal to enter, it's also dangerous, as sewers can contain numerous hazards, including noxious and potentially deadly gases, unstable surfaces, flooding risks, and confined spaces. Councilmember Suzanne Schwang, who covers Gravesend, agrees it should not be taken lightly and commends the NYPD on their swift response and confirmation everything is safe. But not everyone is convinced all is well.
They just say, no, it's fine. It's not fine.
Still a lot of speculation as to what happened, but there is no confirmation as to exactly why these men entered the sewer system. In great
All right, so I'm going to show you biblically why they're in the sewers. All right. All right. The so-called white race, they are Edomites. The small hats that are in our land, in the Holy Land, they're the counterfeits that wear the tiny tops, big nose bastards. All right. They're fulfilling prophecy as the bastards in Ashdod. All right. And they're base men. Job prophesied of them. All right. And it says in Job 30, verse 1, but now they that are younger than I have me in derision, which the Edomite, all right, the so-called white race, they were originally dark-skinned people as Cain, all right, and his descendants, but they lost their color because Cain murdered his brother Abel, all right, and that was the curse of Cain, that they lost their melanin. And ever since, they've been trying to get their melanin back. And Cain married into the Hamites. See, trying to get his color back. Trying to get the land back, the land of Canaan. Which now you got the counterfeits in that land, the Edomites, the tiny tops. All right? And that's why they use the name Jewish-ish. All right? Means not the real Jew, but wish they were a Jew. All right? And the characteristics of the Jew and the Jewish are set apart by biblical standards. All right? The original Jew, which the name Jew is a byword put on Judah, Benjamin, and Levi, the three tribes that were in Jerusalem when the Messiah was walking the earth. All right? And the Judah, all right, Benjamin and Levi are dark-skinned tribes. Even still today, for the most part, they're so-called, I say so-called black because there's no such thing as a black man, but they're just dark brown, all right, different shades of brown. The so-called white man, Esau Edom, which claims to be Jewish, is red. All right, they're not white, they're not the real people. Now you have Israelites amongst all nations, so you got Israelites scattered even amongst the Jewish communities. All right, but this is talking about the Edomites, and that they came out of, they were actually born from Adam and as Cain, and then the reincarnation of Cain, Esau, which his descendants are Edomites. But originally, when they were the serpent in the Garden of Eden that deceived Eve, they had color. All right, and the Lord said not to deal with these Edomites. And when you go into the scriptures, going into the history, they betray everyone. All right, they're backstabbing, they're murderous, they're liars, they're thieves. That's why they've been chased out of many countries. All right, they're always getting caught up in some kind of wicked mischief. All right, so it's going to tell you, Job's going to tell you here, he would even let him buy his dog because they'd molest the dog. All right, it says, but now they that are younger than I have me in derision. Derision means they mock us. All right, they're in power now, though they're weaker than us. They're really nothing compared to us Israelites, but they're ruling over us. Right? It says, whose fathers I would have disdained to have set with my dogs of my flock, which they commit bestiality. All right, it ain't nothing for them to commit bestiality. It said right here in Colorado. I remember just recently this year, I put up a couple reports about these Edomites that had doggy daycares and they were caught molesting them. I saw one Edomite. He was molesting roadkill. See, and he was arrested, so it made the local news, and with that kind of story, it spreads. and it was a so-called white race, Edomite. All right, which they're really red. That's why I say so-called white. They're not white. They're red. Their blood shows forth through their skin because the melanin was removed from their skin because they are the descendants of Cain. All right, his descendants died in the flood, but they came back through Isaac as Esau, the twin brother to Jacob. All right, but Jacob was born with color, Esau was not. All right, it says, verse 2, yea, whereto might the strength of their hands profit me, in whom old age, it says, in whom old age was perished. Pretty much they're feeble and weak and they're gross. When they get old, by 30, they're fucking shot. You see some of these chicks, they're hot when they're 18, 19, 20. But as soon as the chick gets to 30, an Edomite, a so-called white female, they're ugly by 30, 35. So pretty much Job is saying, why would I even want them around me? They're feeble, they're no good to serve me, and then they're gross to look at. Look at the Rothschilds. Look at the Bilderberg. Look at Nero 47. He's disgusting to look at. Imagine that thing eating in front of you. Or the smell. They said that these people have no respect, no honor, right? They're vile creatures. You see, that's why when you go into the history of them as Khazars, they were wearing their clothes until they decayed off of their ass, and then when they sat to eat, they said that the women would pick lice out of their privates in front of everybody while they were at the table and eat it. You see, so these are vile people, and the Lord raised them up, showing His power to take this Neanderthal, the caveman, the so-called white race, and put them in position of power. That's why the world's all fucked up. You got this base man ruling the world. That's why you got shit in the water. You got, you got salmonella on the food, right? E. coli on the food, right? Because the wicked are ruling. Base people, low level, right? It says, in fact, let me grab that in the NLT. I'd like to see what that says. It says, a lot of good they are to me, those worn out wretches. That's what they look like when they get old, and they're not even real old. They're like 30 years old, and they look at like worn out wretches, and they're feeble. That's why they make laws to protect their weak asses. That's why they need the gun, because they're weak. That's why they always have a dog with them that's trained to attack, because they're afraid, they're weak, they're feeble. All right? It says, for want and famine they are solitary, which they were pushed out into the wilderness as cavemen. They're the Neanderthal. Fleeing into the wilderness, which they were the wild men of Europe, in former time desolate and waste. All right? And Aishawa, the name of Esau in Hebrew, means wasted away, because literally they're ordained to be destroyed. All right, they're the wicked, and Yahweh has created them and made them fit for destruction. Look what they do with their power. They destroy civilizations, and they oppress Yahweh's holy people, the Israelites, the so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native American Indians that are enslaved here in America and throughout the world, which they made us subject to payment. All right? Instead of releasing us from captivity like they were supposed to and putting us back in our land, they set themselves up some counterfeits with small hats that, they don't even keep the customs of the Israelites according to the Bible. That's why you have Pink City, Tel Aviv. All right? It says, but their future is desolation, because their kingdom is going to be destroyed and they're going to be enslaved. And the future of these people, these Edomites, all right, they're going to be made extinct according to biblical prophecy, because there's no worth in them. They're nothing. All right. It says, who cut up mallows by the bushes and juniper roots for their meat, which they were eating the roots of the trees as cave people, all right, as Neanderthals, as the wild men of Europe. They were driven for, it says, they were driven forth from among men. They cried after them as after a thief, which you're seeing that come back through this video we just saw of these Edomites coming out the sewer. You got men and females in the sewers, which these Edomites, that's their actual, that's where they will be in the kingdom of heaven. That's where they belong. All right, and they're going to be put there for and enslaved in the sewers of the Holy Land. All right, they're not going to be up walking around serving us because we don't even want to really look at them. All right, and they're worthless in labor, so they're going to be in the sewers. All right, and in the caves and in the holes, digging in the rocks. All right, they're not going to be walking around because the thief cometh to steal and destroy. All right, Yahweh Shai is giving us life, so they take life. That's why they're the sword. That's why they're going to be far from us. And they know it, according to the vision the rich man had when he saw Lazarus in the bosom of Abraham, and there was a great gulf between them, meaning that there's a great space between us. They're not going to be our neighbor. They're going to be underground, all right? Shit, they don't even like the sun because it burns them. It says, to dwell in the cliffs of the valleys, in caves of the earth, and in the rocks. So I'm going to the interlinear. These Edomites, they lived in caves, like a sewer. A sewer is like a cave. It says a hole, a cave. And that word there is, let's see. So it's cha, wa, ra, war, war. All right. And if you look up their original home, Petra, it was a cave in a stone mountain. All right. So it says, Strong's definition, a cavity, socket, den, cave, hole. See? So a sewer, that's where they belong. They belong in a sewer. All right? Enslaved. And that's why the world will be at peace, because they'll no longer be in a position of power. And this is after Yahweh Shai returns and puts them under our feet as slaves. But their future is extinction according to prophecy. It says, among the bushes they bewrayed under the needles, they were gathered together, which they lived under the trees when they were wild men of Europe, when they were Neanderthals. And it says, they were sons of fools, yea, sons of base men, meaning low. They never had a good reputation. They have always had a horrible reputation. They were viler than the earth. They do foul shit. They do nasty, wicked shit. All right? And now am I their song, yea, I am their byword. That's why they call us Negroes, Latinos, and Native American Indians. The so-called white man that is a low-level creature, even it says he's under all the beasts. He's really nothing. He's the bottom of the barrel, and we're under him. So there's no worse that it could be. It's already been the worst it's gonna be here in us, being that we are under the so-called white race. Now he's gonna come down with great wrath, knowing that he had but a short time, which this time that we're going into is gonna be like no other time, because they're gonna persecute us, because they're going into slavery and then extinction. See, so they're gonna come down with great wrath, and that's why we're gonna rejoice that they do, because it means that we're going back to the kingdom of heaven on earth. And Yahweh Shai is going to be sent from Yahweh to save us and put us back in that land. And the heathen are going to be our slaves. All right? So it says, and now am I their song, yea, I am their byword. They abhor me, which Yahweh put that spirit upon them to hate the Israelite. And that's why they're making moves against the so-called Negro, Latino, and Native American Indian, trying to destroy us. They poison our food, poison our water, poison our air, poison our children's mind, right? It says, they flee far from me and spare not to spit in my face, which they show us no consideration, no mercy. They have no, they give us no justice. They really try to devour us. The only reason why we're not consumed is because Yahweh favors us. And he's showed that through his son Yahweh Shai. It says, because he had loosed my cord and afflicted me, they have also let loose the bridle before me. Upon my right hand rise the youth, they push away my feet, and they rise up against me the ways of their destruction. See? And that's what they were created to do. They're the waster, created to destroy. And they take away peace from the earth. It says in Isaiah 54, verse 16, behold, I have created the smith that bloweth the coals in the fire. So Yahweh created Esau through Isaac, which was Yahweh Shai, if you understand that, in reincarnation. All right. It says, and he was given the sword by Isaac, which was Yahweh Shai, and Yahweh Shai is coming back to take the sword down and put him in captivity under the Israelite. It says, and that bringeth forth an instrument for his work, which they created the sword, the gun, and then the nuclear weapon, which they have a great sword now. And I have created the waster, the Edomite, to destroy. And that's what they do. They destroy. They're vile creatures that belong in caves, enslaved, all right, so that they don't hurt nobody, all right? In fact, I got this channel, all right? I got this channel, Edomites, all right? And it says, I got the scripture there. It says, Malachi 1, verse 3, and I hated Esau and laid his mountains and his heritage waste for the dragons of the wilderness, which their kingdom, America, is going to be turned into a lake of fire because they're going to lose World War III, and it's going to be a nuclear war. And it's going to burn for a long time, smoke for a very long time, and then eventually be a desert where desert creatures dwell. All right? And is it wrong for the Lord to do this? Look at all these images of Edomites doing foul shit, right? Constantly. You see? They're always doing vile shit. They're worse than the lowest level animal. They're always doing wicked ass shit. Look at this one. It says, North Dakota woman smiles in mugshot after hatchet attack on sleeping boyfriend. See, no one's safe around these Edomites. All right? And it don't matter if they have authority. They'll misuse their authority. Look at the Epstein files. Look at this one. Breaking news. Prosecutor Bethel Police Chief Chad Esser indicted on 56 counts of sexual battery, 14 counts of sexual misconduct with a minor. See? So it doesn't matter, whether it's male or female. The Edomite, the so-called white race, is a vile creature that Yahweh is going to send Yahweh Shai to pretty much destroy their kingdom and enslave them under the Israelite. All right? And this is why they need to be in chains and in a cave. All right? Because all they do is commit heinous acts. And the more money and the more power they get, the worse it gets. All right? So I just wanted to share that with you. All right. So this is Ezekiel 35. It says prophecy against Mount Seir. All right. This is Mount Seir. All right. You can see how their buildings today in the government match the image of their homeland, Mount Seir, which they lived in a cave, in a mountain. This is why they like to go into these caves. All right. That's where they belong, is in caves. All right. These are base men. All right. And the Lord don't favor them. All right. They have no culture but murder and stealing and lying. All right. It says in verse 1, moreover, the word of Yahweh came unto me, saying, Son of man, set thy face against Mount Seir, and prophesy against it, which we're given this commandment in this generation, to prophesy against Esau, Edom, which their land was known as Mount Seir, which they lived in caves and in rock. All right? That's why they have the natural desire to want to go into the sewers and do foul shit. Right? It says, and say unto it, thus saith Yahweh's power, starting with Yahweh Shai, which he gave us the Holy Spirit to remember ourselves as Israelites and remember who are the Edomites and the other nations. Behold, O Mount Seir, which are the Edomites, the so-called white race today, I am against thee, and I will stretch out mine hand against thee, and I will make thee most desolate, which he's going to destroy America. America's going to lose World War III. World War III is going to end in nuclear war, and America is going to be consumed in nuclear fire and become desolate. What you see, Mount Seir is still existing. And in fact, that land is going to be taken over by Israelites when we go back to the promised land. All right? But their kingdom, America, the great whore, Babylon the Great, is going to be consumed and made desolate by nuclear fire as prophesied. I will lay thy cities waste, and thou shalt be desolate, and thou shalt know that I am Yahweh. Which you know that it's Yahweh because you have the prophets in the Holy Spirit by Yahweh Shai prophesying of what Yahweh's will is for the Edomite, the so-called white race, which is extinction after captivity. It says in verse 5, because thou hast had a perpetual hatred and has shed the blood of the sons of Israel, the so-called Negro, Latino, and Native American Indian, which you have scattered throughout the world in slavery, by the force of the sword in the time of their calamity, which they're actually intending to try to slaughter us in this spiritual Egypt, in the time of their calamity, in the time of their iniquity had an end, which they should have let us go, just like Pharaoh in Egypt. He should have let us go, but Yahweh is hardening their heart through Yahweh Shai, because really the Lord's determination is to bring these people into desolation. All right? It says, therefore, as I live, saith Yahweh's power, I will prepare thee unto blood, and blood shall pursue thee. Sith thou hast not hated blood, even blood shall pursue thee. Which they spilt blood, so their blood has to be spilt to purify the earth from all the blood that they spilt. Thus will I make Mount Seir most desolate, because their blood has to be spilt, and cut off from it him that passeth out and him that returneth. So he's going to make them extinct, the Edomite. Isaiah 14:1, for Yahweh will, this is his will, have mercy on Jacob and will yet choose Israel. Talking about the Israelites, not the Israelis. All right? It says, and set them in their own land, which you got counterfeits in our land. And the strangers shall be joined with them, which are the Israelites scattered throughout the world by the internet. They're believing on Yahweh Ba'asham Yahushai by the prophet of Israel. They shall cleave to the house of Jacob. That's why we were given the internet, which was a weapon formed against us, but no weapon formed against us shall prosper. It says, and the people shall take them and bring them to their place, and the house of Israel shall possess them in the land of Yahweh for servants and handmaids. And they shall take them captives, whose captives they were, and they shall rule over their oppressors. Now I'm going to jump down to verse 21. It says, prepare slaughter for his, it says, children, for his sons, all right, for the iniquity of their fathers, which they enslaved the Israelite, and they have shown us no mercy, and they refuse to let us go. So they're going to be enslaved in the Holy Land, and we're going to have them as slaves, but there's an expiration date on the Edomite, according to biblical prophecy. And we're preparing you for this according to the prophecy. We're telling you your future. All right? It says that they do not rise nor possess the land nor fill the face of the world with cities, so you don't repopulate. Because look what you have done when you were given power to rule the world and repopulate. So Yahweh is going to take your ability away from existing. He's going to make you extinct after slavery. For I will rise up against them, which is happening. That's why you have the Israelite prophet in your kingdom telling you your future of condemnation, saith Yahweh of hosts. And out of Babylon, aka America, the name and remnant and son and nephew, saith Yahweh. I will also make it a possession for the bittern and pools of water. It's going to be made a desert from nuclear destruction. And I will sweep it with the besom of destruction, saith Yahweh of hosts. Which, when you go to Isaiah 13, it tells you who's going to do it. It's the Medes. They're going to team up with the other nations as a savior to them from America, all right? Because America rules the nations in anger, and they're going to run to the BRIC nations, and the BRIC nations are going to ally with your allies, which is going to make them your enemies, and they're going to shoot nuclear missiles on this great whore. It says in Isaiah 13, behold, I will stir up the Medes, the Russians, against them, which shall not regard silver, and as for gold, they shall not delight in it, because America is trying to go digital, right? Because they got trillions in debt, and they're trying to make it an asset through their cryptocurrency. So this is going to anger the Russians, all right, because it tells you here, I put America gets uranium from Russia. AI overview, yes, historically the United States, Babylon the Great whore, has relied heavily on Russia, the Medes, for a significant portion of its enriched uranium to fuel commercial nuclear reactors. However, this dependency is being phased out through recent legislative actions, which eventually they're going to go crypto and go from debt to asset. The fiat currency is a debt. The petrodollar is a debt. And when they go crypto, it's going to be an asset instead of debt. So this is why the Russians ain't going to care about your money. All right? They don't want your gold or your silver. They want to destroy you. All right? And if you watch Putin speak, you know, he openly speaks about America being a modern Sodom and Gomorrah, and what happened to them. Why would it be any different for this spiritual Sodom and Gomorrah today? You know, it says in verse 18 of Isaiah 13, their bowls also shall dash the young men to pieces, and they shall have no pity on the fruit of the womb, which they're going to nuke America, and it's not going to, care if you're a man, woman, or child. or even if you're a baby in your mother's womb. All right, America is going to become a lake of fire, and there's only a remnant of Israel that's going to be saved. According to prophecy, 1/3 of the Israelites in America are going to be redeemed and saved. 2/3 are going to reject salvation, and they're going to be condemned and die with the heathen. All right. So it says, their eyes shall not spare children, talking about those nuclear weapons. And Babylon, aka America, the glory of kingdoms, the beauty of the Chaldees, which is built in witchcraft, excellency, shall be as when Yahweh, sending his son Yahushua, overthrew Sodom and Gomorrah. And what happened to Sodom and Gomorrah? It was destroyed with other cities around about it by fire coming down from heaven. That's going to happen in this generation to America, aka Babylon the great whore, now by nuclear weapon. All right, so this is AI overview. Russian political figures and state media have frequently characterized the United States as a modern day Sodom and Gomorrah. That's why Sodom and Gomorrah were an ensample for them that shall live ungodly. America is an ungodly, wicked ass place because it's the kingdom of the wicked which has corrupted the whole earth, and now we're at the end of their wicked reign, and it's going to end violently, nuclear destruction. They're going to lose World War III, nuclear war, and them that go into the caves and into the holes outside of America, these bunkers that they have, they're going to be preserved to go into slavery under the Israelites, which will be as gods on earth. We're going to get new bodies, and we're going to rule in righteousness, and the wicked, they're going to be under our feet, enslaved. All right. Now, you're going to have the majority of them in the caves, but, we're going to have concubines of them. All right. If there's any females that we desire, we'll have the ability to clean them up and have them as concubines. Otherwise than that, they're going to be in the holes and in the caves. All right. All right. So it tells you here in Genesis 9 verse 19, these are the 3 sons of Noah, which survived the flood with Noah in the ark, and of them was the whole earth overspread. So all the people you see go back to those 3 sons, Sham, Ham, and Japheth. The Israelites and the Edomites, they go back to Sham. That's why you hear these small hats try to say anti-Semitic, which there's nobody in the Bible named Sem. It's Sham. And Sham was the son of Noah, and the reason his name was Sham was because that lineage held the name of Yahweh. And it was all the way down to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, now the Israelites. All right, which we know Yahweh Ba'asham Yahushai, for he knows us, and he gave us the spirit to remember ourselves and to call upon their name, Yahweh and his son Yahushai, our Father and our Savior, the Messiah. Yahweh is the Father, Yahushai is the Savior, the Messiah that Yahweh raised from the dead. All right. It says, and Noah began to be a husbandman, meaning planting a garden, and he planted a vineyard, and he drank of the wine and was drunken, which this happens to men, right? And remember, it wasn't because of the stress of the flood, because, a vineyard takes almost a whole year to get the wine, and then to get the fruit to make the wine, but then it takes a whole nother process to get wine, good wine. It has to age. So this is really a couple years after, the flood already happened. All right. But men, when they drink wine, even Zerubbabel spoke about the wine, making the king get out of character, that it has the power to get you out of character. All right. So Noah drank the wine, and he was drunken, and he was uncovered within his tent, so he was naked. And Ham, the father of Canaan, saw the nakedness of his father, and told his two brethren without, which he was in his land. Just like they're in our land today, right? You had the Hamites in our land, the land of Canaan, and then you had now these Edomites in our land, the counterfeits, which operate in the magic of Ham. That's why you have the Eye of Horus throughout their society, like Hollywood, all right, or the Egyptian pyramid on the back of their dollar, or Nimrod's rod as a monument in their capitals, right? Because Esau's operating in the spirit and the witchcraft of Ham, all right? Though Esau is the twin brother of Jacob, he's the arch enemy to the Israelite, all right? It says, and Ham, the father of Canaan, saw the nakedness of his father and told his two brethren without. And Shem and Japheth took a garment and laid it upon both their shoulders and went backward so that they didn't see their nakedness of their father, and covered the nakedness of their father, Noah. And their faces were backward, and they saw not their father's nakedness. And Noah awoke from his wine and knew what his younger son had done unto him. Which, that's what the Edomites are doing to us. All right, they're in our land and they're making mockery of us. All right, they're mocking us to the nations. All right, it says, and he said, cursed be Canaan, a servant of servants shall he be unto his brethren, which he's going to be in the field. And Esau is going to be under the Hamite, in the caves, in the holes, in the sewers, all right? But working our fields, all right, tending to our animals is going to be Ham. And then Japheth are going to be our doormen, and Shem is going to be our house slaves, all right? But Esau Edom, even though he's from the lineage of Shem, all right, through Isaac, he's going to be the farthest away from us because he's the wicked, all right? It says, verse 26, and he said, blessed be Yahweh's power of Shem, which is to the elect, and Canaan shall be his servant. Elohim shall enlarge Japheth, and he shall dwell in the tents of Shem. See, so he's gonna dwell in the tents. He's gonna be like a house nigga, and in the tents of Shem, and Canaan shall be his servant. So he's gonna be the field nigga, and then the Japheth and Shem, they're gonna be like a house nigga, a house slave. All right, it says, and Noah lived after the flood 350 years, and all the days of Noah were 950 years, and he died. See, so the prophecy is that Esau is going to be far away from us. It says there's a great gulf. Right here. Luke 16, verse 26, and it's Yahushua speaking, and beside all this, between us, Esau, and the Israelites, and you, there is a great gulf, a great space, which all these other nations are going to be between us and Edom, from the descendants of Shem, Japheth, and Ham. Esau is going to be the farthest from us. All right? It says, so that they which would pass from hence to you cannot, which you see they want to be Jew. They call themselves Jewish. They wish they were an Israelite, right? It says, neither can they pass to us that would come from thence. See? So there's no other nation that could become an Israelite. We're born Israelites, and we're the greatest of over all the nations. All right? And Esau is the lowest of all the nations. He's a base man. He's filthy. He's nasty. He's vile. He's disgusting. He's like a creature. Right? The animals are better than him. And I'm telling you, like a pig, a maggot is better than Esau. Because they have a purpose that promotes life, when Esau, all he does is bring death. All right? It says in Deuteronomy 28:1, and it shall come to pass, if thou shalt hearken diligently unto the voice of Yahweh thy power, to observe and do all his commandments which Yahweh has done for the Israelites, which I command thee this day, that Yahweh thy power will set thee on high above all the nations of the earth. See, so they're all going to be serving us, all the nations. They're all going into slavery under us, and it's already in progress. All right? But Esau, Edom, he's going to be the farthest from us. He's not going to get no mercy. All right? Because of their wickedness, they have blasphemed Yahweh, blasphemed Yahweh Shai, blasphemed the holy angels, blasphemed the prophets. And what does it say? That he wants to murder us. Instead of surrendering, they want to murder us. It says that in 2 Ezra 15 and 10. It says, behold, my people, the Israelites, is led as a flock to the slaughter, which they're intending to try to slaughter us now. I will not suffer them now to dwell in the land of Egypt. Egypt is America. But I will bring them with a mighty hand and a stretched out arm, and smite Egypt with plagues as before. So this ain't talking about ancient Egypt. This is talking about a spiritual modern Egypt, which is America. Look at the back of the dollar. Look at your monuments and your capitals. Your president is inaugurated. That goes back to Egypt. And will destroy all the land thereof. The pyramids still exist in ancient Egypt. This is talking about America eating nuclear missiles. It says, verse 14, woe to the world and them that dwell therein, because it's going to be a nuclear war. For the sword, the so-called white race, and their destruction draw nigh. And one people shall stand up and fight against another, and swords in their hands. You're going to have nation against nation, a race war, and world war, World War III. It says, for there shall be sedition among men, and invading one another. They shall not regard their kings nor princes, and the course of their actions shall stand in their power, which they're losing their authority every day, which the people they rule over are getting tired of their wicked oppression that they even oppress their own people with. Proverbs 29:2, when the wicked rule, the people mourn. But when the righteous rule, the people rejoice. The wicked are ruling right now. It says in verse 17, a man shall desire to go into a city and shall not be able, for because of their pride the city shall be troubled, the houses shall be destroyed, and men shall be afraid. A man shall have no pity upon his neighbor, but shall destroy their houses with the sword, and spoil their goods because of the lack of bread and for great tribulation. See, and they're doing this, they're coming down with great wrath, knowing that they have but a short time. Revelation 12:12. And all we gotta do is rejoice in Yahweh Ba'asham Yahweh Shai. It says, in the same tabernacle is rejoicing and salvation pertaining to the Israelite man. And we rejoice in Yahweh Ba'asham Yahweh Shai, for we were given a promise of salvation, and that we would rule. See, and that's why we have to wash ourselves in this word, preparing to meet our Maker, Yahweh's Son, Yahweh Shai. Shalom to the elect of the nation of Israel, Wa Abba Babal.